Death Mage 257, The Relief of the Knight of Keen Insight. At the Commerce Guild, Vandalyu was able to take care of his affairs promptly while avoiding various troublesome matters, thanks to the Guild Master's preemptive actions.
To think that we would be so popular. Not that I am happy about it,
said Muse. The various troublesome matters were apparently so-called get-rich-quick schemes that merchants wanted to suggest to Vandalyu. A third of them were the same as the one proposed by Joseph, the former deputy guild master of the Commerce Guild in Morksey. Another third of them were related to the transformation equipment that Vandalyu had invented. The last third of them were almost all related to Muse, Maruru, Juliana, and the others. The Rat Sisters were new races of monsters. Impusa were also thought of as a new race of monsters, even if that wasn't quite the case, and Arachne and Scylla were also rare around these lands. Some of the offers were reasonable ones, involving the sale of materials taken from these monsters, such as shed fur, saliva, and shed carapaces. Other offers were less pleasant, such as the offers to buy Juliana to keep as a beloved pet. The former would have been fine perhaps for the rats, but it was not a pleasant offer for Muse and the others. It would be physiologically impossible for them to provide for large crowds of men and women demanding fur, saliva, and carapaces. If the guild master hadn't scolded and chased off the merchants gathered at the guild, Vandalyu would have likely been making generous use of the Demon King's demon eyes.
As the one who manages the Commerce Guild, I offer my sincerest apologies. However, I would like you to realize that not all merchants are like them. They are people with little experience as merchants or fools that don't learn from the experience they do have. After seeing you, they made rash and hasty moves, but the respectable merchants have not made a move. They should be readying themselves and observing you. So please forget about the one who wanted to buy that girl. I will be giving him a strict warning as soon as possible,
said the guild master of the Commerce Guild. Unlike the young merchants who had made hasty moves, he knew the face of Juliana, the youngest sister of the Duke. He did not understand why she had become a mutant minotaur child, but he seemed to believe it would not be wise for a mere merchant like him to touch on this topic.
In any case, we've received permission to do business in this city and information on a farmer who grows sugar beets, so let's leave it at that,
Vandalyu said to Muse and Privel, sitting on a bench in the city's central plaza.
And there were some normal merchants too.
After Vandalyu and his companions left the Commerce Guild, they had been approached by people wanting carapaces and fur, their requests prefaced with, "I am reluctant to ask this of such young women," but other merchants had aimed for the starving wolf security personnel, rather than approaching Vandalyu and his companions directly. Vandalyu and his companions responded appropriately to these merchants as well. With that said, in regards to the former, they had simply responded with the vague promise of, "if we get the opportunity."
I shed my carapace once a year, and I do not carry the fur I shed around with me. I feel bad for them, but I am hesitant to offer my saliva,
said Gizania.
It can't be helped. Who knows what will turn up if they investigate our hair, fur, and carapaces,
said Privel.
Ah, this is delicious.
How nostalgic, it's just as delicious as when I had it before,
said Vandalyu. After leaving the Commerce Guild, Vandalyu and his companions had started buying and eating food in the central plaza. The central plaza of the Alcrim metropolis had all kinds of establishments, ranging from high-class restaurants catered to well-dressed, wealthy customers, to stores offering cheap meals to commoners. Opting for the items sold at the food carts, Vandalyu and his companions had started at one end and gone around, buying and eating the various items available.
You guys, considering that the duel is tonight, it's pretty bold of you to buy your competitors' products,
said the plentiful sandwich, Sandy, the representative of the Alcrim food cart pentagram who had challenged Vandalyu to the duel in the morning. She was looking at Vandalyu and his companions with a look that was a mixture of exasperation and admiration. The food they had bought included not only the stuffed full with filling sandwiches sold at her food cart, but the products of the other food cart pentagram members as well.
We're buying these because the duel is tonight. We won't be able to win unless we do preparatory research on what our competitors are selling and what will sell to the people of Alcrum.
Said Vandalu.
And you're the one who told us to come before the duel started so that we can have a meeting before it.
Yes, it's helpful that you came and showed your face early. So how are my sandwiches?
Sandy asked.
They're delicious. The way you have concentrated your effort on creating your sauce is particularly good.
Vandalu replied. The sandwiches that had become Sandy's title were packed with fillings, something that could be seen at first glance. The bread was not white bread baked with wheat flour, but brown bread baked with mixed grains. But that solid, heavy, slightly sour bread went very well with the ingredients. As Vandalu mentioned, the sauce on the ingredients was a masterpiece. Naturally, as things like mayonnaise and ketchup did not exist in human societies, the sauce used in Sandy's sandwiches did not contain them. However, the spices, fruit skins, and finely minced vegetables were fused into a complicated flavor that one could never get tired of.
Oh, you have quite the taste, don't you?
Said Sandy.
The best thing is that you use cheap ingredients, so you can profit even if you keep the price down. Delicious, low price, and substantial. I can see why these are popular with rookie adventurers who don't earn much and assistance of merchants and craftsmen.
Vandalu continued.
Yes, you know quite a lot. Don't you know a little too much for your age? Did you ladies give him some hints?
Sandy had seemed pleased with Vandalu's thoughts at first, but as he continued his analysis, she shot a suspicious look at Privel and the others.
No, it is our first time in a human city, so it is our first time buying and eating snacks between meals like this.
Said Muse. The truth was that Muse and the others had bought and eaten snacks between meals in the nations in the Boundary Mountain Range. But Muse needed to lie so as not to contradict the story they had told the knights when they entered Alcrum.
Incidentally, Sandy Dono, does your food cart not need your attention?
Muse asked.
No, since I don't actually make my food at the food cart. I make the sandwiches at home and bring them to the food cart to sell, so business is finished for the day when they sell out.
Said Sandy.
Normally, I'd be packing up the shop around this time of day to go back to my husband and help him prepare the sandwiches to sell for dinner. But we have our meeting today.
Muse's attempt to change the subject of the conversation was successful. Meanwhile, 4 people approached from behind Sandy.
Before we begin our meeting, we need to introduce ourselves and apologize. I'm the soup on a whim Singh.
Said a lively-looking middle-aged man.
I am the red hot rice papyrus.
Said a dwarf man with a wild haircut and beard.
Nice to meet you. I am known as the Chaos Rice Ball Mickham.
Said a woman who looked to be around 20 years old.
I am the sweet sweets Tom. Please do not ask too many questions about this long-winded title.
Said a kind-looking old man, who seemed to be the leader of the group.
Us 4 and Sandy over there are the Alcrum food cart pentagram. We apologize for causing you so much trouble.
He said, lightly bowing his head. Sandy and the others voiced their apologies to Vandalu as well.
I mean, they were rumors, so don't worry about it.
Said Vandalu.
No. Sandy and the others are at fault for taking gossip so seriously, and Mickham and I are also to blame for not admonishing them.
Said Tom.
But if you are not going to accept an apology, then perhaps gratitude would be better. If you had ignored us, Sandy and the others would have had nothing to say for themselves.
Singh and Papyrus looked away, looking ashamed. It seemed that Sandy, Singh, and Papyrus had taken the rumors seriously and demanded a duel or showdown with Vandalu, and Tom and Mickham had tried to stop them.
We did tell them that even if the rumors were true, they weren't anything to pay attention to. Those kinds of sales pitches are used everywhere, after all.
Said Mickham.
We made false accusations against you, but you still accepted our duel. We have nothing but gratitude for you.
Said Singh.
Well, we're not going to go easy on you in the duel, though.
He added,
I hate to repeat myself, but please don't worry about it.
said Vandalyu.
By the way, what about the meeting?
Yes, about the way we will compete. I am thinking that we should decide on who is victorious by the total number of sales and customers. We shall be ranked from 1st to 6th, and no matter what the results are, we will all shake hands and vow to continue to do our best. How does that sound?
Said Tom. No signboards, products, or business locations were on the line, and the duel would end in an amicable manner. It was certainly a vague way to end a duel, but it would be fine as an end to an event. Indeed, Vandalyu had no intention of continuing to operate his food cart in Alcrum, so winning signboards and business locations would only cause him trouble.
I have no objections, but one more thing. If I win, I would like you to decorate your food carts with these,
said Vandalyu, taking some cloths from the things that Gizania was carrying on her back. These cloths bore the heart marks that were Vita's holy symbol, the same ones worn by starving wolf security personnel and the food carts in Morksey.
This is good cloth. This is good cloth, but didn't the church tell you not to do anything that draws attention?
Asked Tom, having heard the rumors in town. Vandalyu shook his head.
They told my mother that, not me. And these cloths are not for religious reasons, they're just for business.
It was a deceptive argument, but the Church of Vita in Alcrum didn't have any right to stop Vandalyu and his companions from acting freely to begin with. They had merely made a request. Of course, Vandalyu and Darsha's reputations would worsen if they were to bluntly refuse the church's request and provoke the Church of Alda and its followers. However, something like this would be fine. To the people of the city, this commotion about a duel was nothing more than an event.
I see. Well then, I do not mind. You are not asking us to become affiliated with you or anything, are you? With that being the case, it will be helpful as it would make it clear which food cart has won the duel.
Said Tom. It seemed that the Alcrum food cart pentagram had no complaints about it. Having a flag on their food carts would not affect their business at all, and it would only be for a limited period of time. They would perhaps be opposed to this idea if they were fervent worshippers of God other than Vita, but that didn't seem to be the case.
I mean, you're probably going to lose if we're doing this around dinner time, old man Tom. Maybe you should just take one of the cloths now.
Said Singh.
Singh, don't go telling the truth now, the competition hasn't started yet, you know.
Said Tom.
The truth, Elder Tom, I will of course be supporting Van, but the cake from your store was very delicious. I think you should have more confidence in your own creations.
Said Gizania. The wrinkles on Tom's face deepened as he gave a joyful laugh.
It delights me to no end to know that you enjoyed my cake so much, Arachne lady. I suppose sweets are popular with women, no matter what race they are. However, the demand for my store's products drops at dinner time compared to lunchtime.
The demand for my sandwiches drops a little too.
Said Sandy.
On the other hand, Papyrus's fried rice and Singh's soup sell more. The clientele changes at dinner time.
When the sun set, less young women spent time in this area looking for something light to eat. There were more laborers, adventurers, and city guards around, having finished their day of work. It seemed that the main thing they wanted for dinner was something substantial like the meals served at Papyrus and Singh's food carts. Of course, there were some who added a sweet dessert to their dinner, but although Tom and the others were known as the Alcrum foot cart pentagram, they were still just food carts in the end. Customers who did want a dessert with their meal would normally go to restaurants.
Adventurers and city guards who are married do come to buy things to take home to their families, so it is not that we cannot sell any products at all.
Tom added.
Still, we panicked a little when Sandy rushed off, saying that she was going to challenge you to a duel.
I mean, at the time, I was intending to challenge him to a duel at lunchtime on the next day, so that we'd have more of an advantage. But since he wasn't such a bad person, I kind of lost the will to do that.
Said Sandy.
Well, in any case, let us all do our best. My food cart has arrived.
Said Vandalyu. Among the bustling crowd, he had spotted his food cart being pulled by Hoffen men, accompanied by a waving Darsha. As a result of his research, the dish Vandeleu had chosen for his duel ended up being his meat skewers.
I only have a few hours to prepare after all. I can't make large changes to my cooking. If that wasn't the case, it's quite cold around here, so I would have made steamed meat buns.
Said Vandeleu. Noodle dishes hadn't been invented in this world, but steamed buns did exist. They were thought to have originated when an unsuccessful baker living in a hot spring area came up with the idea of saving on fuel costs by trying to use hot steam to bake his bread. However, it seemed that steamed buns were known as hot spring buns and considered to be local specialties that could only be purchased in hot spring areas, so people living in other areas were not familiar with them. Thus, even Vandeleu and his companions had never actually eaten steamed buns in human society.
If that's the case, wouldn't it be better to change the time of the duel to tomorrow or the day after?
Suggested Natania.
Natania-san, Vandeleu-sama is confident that he can win with his meat skewers. Vandeleu-sama clearly has the upper hand when it comes to technique, after all.
Said Juliana. Indeed, Vandeleu's cooking skill was level 8. It would not be strange for someone with a level this high to be a main chef at a first-class restaurant or the head chef of a prestigious noble's house. In contrast, the cooking skill of the members of the Alcrum food cart pentagram was unlikely to be that high. They were the owners of famous food carts, and their cooking had indeed been delicious, but it still wasn't superior to Vandeleu's.
But Juliana, victory isn't decided by the level of the cooking skill alone. That's especially true in Vankun's case, considering where the duel is taking place.
Said Privel.
Oh, you're right.
Said Juliana, remembering that Vandeleu would not be able to use various seasonings, ingredients, and cooking methods in human society. There were all kinds of reasons for this, including the fact that Vandeleu wanted to one day use them for local specialties and export products of the demon empire of Vittel.
But I think I'll be able to get pretty far. None of the pentagram are a meat skewer food cart, so my product will be unique too. I should be able to aim for 3rd or maybe 2nd place.
Said Vandeleu.
Are you not aiming for 1st place?
Asked Muse.
I am not Muse.
Vandeleu replied.
If a newcomer makes such a big appearance, they'll be hated.
Vandeleu would win over some of the pentagram and lose to others. He would then praise his competitors' efforts and exchange handshakes. That was the ideal outcome of the food cart duel. It would not be good for Vandeleu to lose to all 5 of them, but it wouldn't be good to defeat all of them and have the people declare him victorious over the Alcrum food cart pentagram.
You say newcomer, but I'd say you've achieved quite a lot in Morksey.
Natania pointed out.
That's because Joseph did a lot of things to make things difficult for us, and because Hajime and the others came to cause trouble. If that hadn't been the case, I would have been just an ordinary meat skewer food cart owner now.
Said Vandeleu, putting the blame on Joseph and on Hajime Inui, the reincarnated individual who had attacked the city as the vessel of Fitnun, the god of thunderclouds.
Still, there was the business with the orphanage in Birkane, and I don't think anyone else would have become Simon Sand's master. Maybe things wouldn't have ended up so differently.
Said Darsha. That sunk Vandeleu's argument, causing him to fall silent, although his hands kept working on preparing the food.
By the way, Vandeleu, that isn't Thunder Dragon and Mountain Giant meat. It's ordinary orc, impaler bull, and mad boar meat. Those aren't bad ingredients by any means, but are you fine with them?
Darsha asked.
Oh, really?
Said Privel, who hadn't noticed. With a surprised look, she looked at the skewers Vandeleu was making. There were dungeons around Alcrum ranging from B-class to E-class, and many adventurers were based here. Thus, many food ingredients were sourced from monsters. Therefore, meat from rank 3 orcs and impaler bulls wasn't rare. They were commonly used even by the Alcrum food cart pentagram, with the exception of Tom's dessert store. Indeed, these ingredients were used in the sandwiches, soup and rice balls that Vandalyu and his companions had purchased and eaten today. Fewer stores used meat from rank 4 mad boars than orcs, but not to the point that it could be called rare. The flavor quality and scarcity of the meat taken from rank 8 thunder dragons was in another dimension.
Yes. Using ingredients that are too high quality would be bad for my image and reputation,
said Vandalyu.
Now that you mention it, you're right. You don't want people to think that you forced a victory with the sheer quality of your ingredients rather than your cooking skill and ingenuity.
Darsha agreed.
Does that mean I shouldn't transform and work as a shop assistant?
I don't think they'll mind that. They already know that you're going to be my shop assistant, Mom,
said Vandalyu.
Why you are worrying about your image and reputation after all of this?
Said Gizania, her eyes wide open in surprise.
And if this was Morksy, wouldn't you be playing winner takes all?
Said Natania. The attention of the people nearby was drawn to Vandalyu's food cart, as Gizania, a large-built arachne whose spider-like lower body was larger than the food cart itself, was standing next to it, alongside Privel and Muse. Most people were looking simply out of curiosity, but there were also some negative stares filled with repulsion, fear, and anger. Seeing as Vandalyu was taking them around with him anyway without caring about that, Gizania had thought that he didn't care about his image and reputation. And as Natania pointed out, one of the reasons Vandalyu's food cart had risen to the top in the city of Morksy was because it offered delicious monster meat skewers at a cheap price, though there were other factors, including the fact that Vandalyu and his sales assistant Darsha belonged to rare races.
I do care,
said Vandalyu.
I do care about the image and reputation I have as a worshipper of Vita, the food cart king of Morksy, the true ruler of the entertainment district, and the patron saint of transformation equipment. But I couldn't care less about people who dislike me, you guys, Vita's races and familiars. It's a bit too late for me to care about what they think. As for Morksy, I'm just doing business there, but this is a duel, a contest. There aren't any clear rules, but it would still feel bad to compete in a completely rule-ignoring way. I don't need to win so desperately that I need to put all of my effort into it anyway.
Vandalyu and his companions currently didn't have any plans to move their base of operations to Alcrum. They intended to return to Morksy once the audience with the Duke was finished and the problems with the fake face-staring demon and Arthur were resolved. There was nothing to gain from putting every effort into seizing victory over the pentagram.
So, are you going to be holding back then?
Asked Juliana.
No. I'm going to compete to the best of my ability while following the unspoken rules and the limits I choose to impose on myself, although I'm using a portion of my thinking power to look for spirits of victims and witnesses of the fake face-staring demon. Before I go to bed tonight, maybe I should visit places where corpses were discovered and check if they've become spirits bound to the place they died,
said Vandalyu. The other thing was that the duel would be seen by the public, so Vandalyu thought it would be a visible location marker for Arthur if he were to come to receive an answer.
Incidentally, Vandalyu-sama, what shall we do about Ralmaya's surveillance on us? It seems that he is looking for something,
said Chipperas, pointing at one particular corner of the plaza. It was likely that the Knight of Keen Insight Ralmaya, one of the 5 Knights of Alcrum, had created the rumors regarding Vandalyu to Sandy and the others this morning, and was in fact the mastermind behind the food cart duel. Chipperas had reported his involvement to Vandalyu.
For now, let's just keep an eye on him. I don't know what he's after all,
said Vandalyu.
He has the demon eye of appraisal, and if his goal is to see our statuses, one glance should be enough.
Indeed. Then I shall return to monitoring him,
said Chipperas, going back to his task. As if replacing him, Simon and Keisha returned with Fang, who was pulling a wagon.
Master, we've bought as much cheese that'll melt if you heat it, just as you asked,
said Simon.
Are you going to use it in your sauce, or are you going to make cheese skewers?
Asked Keisha.
Your ideas are quite interesting, Keisha, but I am thinking of pouring the cheese on top of the skewers,
said Vandalyu. And so preparations continued, and the duel finally began. One part of the central plaza had simple tables and benches, where food and tea could be enjoyed outside. The knight of keen insight Ralmaya sat on one of those benches, commanding and executing his plan in the central plaza. Just as Chipperas, Vandalyu, and the others suspected, Ralmaya's objective in riling up the Alcrum food cart pentagram and creating the circumstances for a duel to be held was, of course, to use his demon eye of appraisal to see the skills and attribute values of Vandalyu and his companions. But why a cooking showdown? If he wanted to see their abilities, wouldn't it have been better to send thugs and hoodlums after them rather than the owners of well-known food carts? Those who don't understand the power of my demon eye of appraisal would surely think so. However, if I simply look at my targets, my demon eye of appraisal can only see the characteristics of their appearance. They cannot measure numbers accurately. If the targets themselves do not exert themselves to some extent, I cannot get an accurate measure of numbers. Based on reports from the spies Duke Alcrum had sent to the city of Morksey and the widespread rumors, the Dark Elf Mother was at least equivalent in strength to a B-class adventurer, and although the strength of Vandalyu himself was unknown, his familiars were almost certainly very powerful, and it was difficult to imagine that he was the powerless boy that his appearance and current Adventurers Guild class suggested. His apprentices, the Flying Sword Simon and Iron Cat Natania, were C-class adventurers. It was also unlikely that his new Arachne and Scylla familiars were the ranks that had been reported at the city gate. Given all of this, would they really exert themselves to some extent to fend off some thugs and hoodlums? They were more likely to brush their attackers off without showing even a fraction of their strength. To begin with, it wasn't a simple task to prepare a disposable pawn that could force someone with a B-class adventurer's strength to exert themselves. It would be a different story if someone connected to the Alcrum House of Dukes, such as a skilled knight of the Knights Order serving the Duke's house, or one of the 5 knights, could challenge Vandalyu to a test of strength. But this would very likely cause Vandalyu and his companions to become suspicious, and it was possible that it would make the unofficial audience that would take place later a more dangerous meeting. Given that, it is simpler if it is cooking or dancing. I can make them exert themselves to some extent in a peaceful manner. Of course, I can't directly measure the levels of their combat-related skills, but I can accurately measure their attribute values. When they use their brains and move their hands quickly while they cook, I can see their intelligence and agility. When they use their physical endurance, I can see their stamina. When they use the magic stoves, I can see their mana. And people say that dancing skills transfer to combat. Well, I don't know if they will be singing and dancing. It matters not. All that is left to do is sit here in this front row seat and measure their strength. Naturally, Ralmaya was sitting on a bench where he could see Vandalyu's food cart. Fortunately, Vandalyu had an Arachne and Scylla with him, a rare sight around here, and they were drawing the stares of the people nearby. Even if Ralmaya observed Vandalyu and his companions intently, it would be assumed that he was simply one of the countless onlookers. The truth was that Ralmaya had already been found and was being observed by Chipperas, but he wasn't aware of that. In any case, I must see the numbers. First, from Vandalyu, he has familiars with him, but the effects of the animal training skill are not active. Does he not have the skill? As for cooking, level 8, impossible, but he is indeed 11 years old, as his appearance suggests. Even that old man Tom, a member of the Pentagram, has the skill at level 6. The head chef of Duke Alcrum's house has it at level 7. They have decades of experience, but they have been surpassed by a boy who is merely 11. Although the cooking skill had nothing to do with Ralmaya's original objective, he was astounded nonetheless, but he continued measuring Vandalyu's abilities. His mana is unknown, and his other attributes are in the tens of thousands. What nonsense is this? Never mind being equal to us 5 knights, he surpasses us. Is he truly an 11-year-old boy? No, perhaps his father, instead of being a subordinate or noble-born, is the boy directly descended from a pure-breed vampire. The fortunate thing for Ralmaya at this moment was that Vandalyu's food cart cooked its food using the flames of Levia, a fire attribute ghost, rather than operating a magical stove. If he were to get even a rough estimate of Vandalyu's mana, he might have screamed in terror. Of course, even after just measuring Vandalyu's attribute values except for his mana, Ralmaya was completely paralyzed with shock. This was unexpected. We expected that he would be the type of tamer who is reasonably capable in combat himself, but to think that he would have the attribute values of an A-class adventurer, no, an S-class one. Does this mean the others are powerful as well? Ralmaya directed his demon eye of appraisal at the food cart security and shop assistants, Simon and Natania, as well as the conspicuous Gizanier and the rest. Information such as their height, body mass, and age were displayed in his mind, and their attribute values followed. Of course, Simon and the others weren't exactly busy working, so the numbers were not particularly accurate. The others are powerful as well. Even taking into account the inaccuracy in the numbers he was seeing, the attribute values of Gizania and the others were high. In truth, they were around rank 10, and their attribute values were easily within the range of those of A-class adventurers. That wasn't the case for Simon, Natania, and Juliana, but their attribute values were only low when compared to those of Vandalyu, Gizanier, and the others. They were not weak by any means. And in Simon and Natania's case, they had artificial limbs. The magic items called transformation equipment that the ghouls and dark elf are using, and the artificial limbs of the flying sword and iron cat, none of them are normal. Defense, flexibility, and most importantly, the amount of mana embedded in them is on another scale compared to other magic items. Just how many tens of thousands of mages would have been needed to know he has used the magic stones of high-rank monsters? What? At that moment, right before Ralmaya's eyes, a drunkard got into a scuffle with Keisha, who was working as a waitress serving customers with food placed on tree leaves rather than plates, and tried to forcibly pull her away with him. Keisha deftly knocked him onto the ground. Having been rejected by Keisha, the drunkard, who seemed to be an adventurer or mercenary, drew his sword. Keisha produced a wooden rod that she was carrying for self-defense and easily fought him off with it. Ralmaya watched the entire spectacle with his demon eye of appraisal and was astounded even further. Her swordsmanship skill is level 7. To think that a ghoul's skill level would be this high, the strength spoken of in the rumors is not a result of the transformation equipment or enchantments. The base strength they possess to begin with is far greater than what we imagined. Up until this point, Ralmaya had thought of ghouls to be a kind of monster that did not pose a great threat. Though they could speak human languages and were intelligent, their base form was rank 3 at most, and even superior races of ghouls above rank 6 had not been seen in recent years. But it seemed that this perception of ghouls was greatly mistaken. To think that even I, a man who is praised as the knight of keen insight, would be breaking into a cold sweat just by measuring attribute values. But I will not be able to face the Duke if I don't measure more skills than just the boys cooking. The first thing he looked at was Darsha, who was performing a small song and dance at the request of the customers. It was calming for him to see her mundane skills such as singing or dancing. However, more beads of cold sweat formed on Ralmaya's back as he began seeing skills that no ordinary dark elf could possibly possess. Self-strengthening, Vandalyu, strengthened attribute values, creator, vitality enhancement, status effect resistance, and monstrous strength. Is this woman really a dark elf? As he continued measuring Darsha's skills, he realized that there was someone with a guider-type job around her. What's this? Self-strengthening, guidance? In other words, this woman is being guided by someone by a guider. Ralmaya was aware of what guiders were. They were those with jobs that were so rare that no more than one guider had ever existed at any given point in history, with the exception of the champions such as Bellwood. They had an even greater influence on the world than S-class adventurers. But where in the world was the guider who was guiding Darsha? Ralmaya's gaze slowly shifted towards the most likely possibility, as he repeatedly told himself that such a thing was utterly impossible. But upon measuring Vandalyu's passive skills, he saw that the guidance skill was among them. Guidance and strengthened attribute values, worshipped. This is why he does not have the animal training skill despite being a tamer. He is not training his familiars, he is guiding them and making himself a symbol of their worship. And Abyss, what in the world is Abyss? In any case, I must report this to His Excellency the Duke. Vandalyu was a guider. Having realized this, Ralmaya immediately stood up from the bench and was about to turn around and leave, but found himself unable to do that. His eyes had met Vandalu's, who was staring directly at him. A small scream escaped Ralmaya's lips. He could see a reflection of himself in Vandalu's hollow, empty eyes. And his instincts told him that Vandalu knew he had been peering into his status. A hallucination appeared before him, a hallucination of a grotesque monstrosity crawling out from the abyss beyond Vandalu's eyes. I'm going to be killed. I'm going to die here, Ralmaya thought in despair, trembling in terror, certain of his doom. But after staring at him for a few seconds, Vandalu's eyes moved away again. And as if nothing had happened, he began taking the order of a large man with a great sword on his back. I have been spared, me. It had been decided that Ralmaya was not a significant threat, not even worth disposing of. Fully aware of this, Ralmaya ran from the plaza as fast as his legs could carry him, ignoring the strange stares from the people nearby. His heart was filled not with humiliation, but with the joy and relief of still being alive. Name Keisha. Rank 8. Race Ghoul Wizard Sword Adept. Level 90. Job Flame Space Magic Swordsman. Job level 70. Job history: Apprentice Warrior, Warrior, Apprentice Mage, Mage, Magic Swordsman, Fire Attribute Mage, Space Attribute Mage, Flame Space Mage, Light Wind Technique Swordsman. Age: 27 years old, 19 years old in appearance. Passive skills: Dark Vision transformed from Night Vision. Pain Resistance level 4 level up. Superhuman Strength level 8 level up. Paralyzing Venom Secretion Claws, level 4 level up. Strengthened attack power when equipped with a staff, medium new. Strengthened attack power when equipped with a sword, very large new. Strengthened defensive power when equipped with metal armor, large new. Mana Enlargement, level 4 new. Self-strengthening guidance, level 7 new. Active skills: Swordsmanship, level 7 level up. Armor Technique, level 5 level up. Shield Technique, level 6 level up. Dismantling, level 4 level up. Surpass Limits Magic Sword, level 5 new. Surpass Limits, level 10 new. Coordination, level 8 new. No Attribute Magic, level 8 new. Fire Attribute Magic, level 7 new. Space Attribute Magic, level 7 new. Light Attribute Magic, level 5 new. Wind Attribute Magic, level 6 new. Mana Control, level 9 new. Chant Revocation, level 5 new. Housework, level 2 new. Singing, level 1 new. Dancing, level 1 new. Unique skills: Vandalu's Divine Protection new.